Welcome back to another episode of the Self Care Revolution. This is the podcast for women over 40 that want to embrace more self care in their daily lives. Okay. And today, I had a question for you. What if failure wasn't the end, but the beginning of something greater? Okay. Because today we're talking about how to stop seeing failure as something to fear and start using it as a tool for our learning and growth, okay? Because contrary to popular belief, failure is not the end, okay? I'm going to start out with a personal story of my own, short and sweet. We're talking about my workout journey, okay? When I first started getting really serious about working out, I used to beat myself up for not completing workouts, right? The workout may have been 45 minutes, but maybe I did 30, right? And I had to reframe that and look at it as growth because while I wasn't working out nearly as consistently as I started, it was like I had to stop looking at not finishing a workout as failure because it was growth because I was also showing up consistently. I just wasn't finishing the workout, but I was getting in 75% of the workout. So I still saw results. And so I had to sit back and say, look, it's not failure. Your goal was not to complete the workout. Your goal was to develop consistency. All right. So I had to reframe that. Okay. It was not failure, but it was growth. All right. So I want to talk today about, why we fear failure, why it's something that stops us from doing stuff. We're going to talk about reframing it, and I'm going to give you some tips to help you stop looking at failure as the end all be all. Okay. So, first off, when we talk about failure or when we think about failure, we have to realize that our human brains are wired to avoid failure, right? If we think something's going to go bad, we think something's not going to go the way we want it, we tend to hold that fear as a greater thing than actually just giving it a try. Okay, so our brains are wired, like I said, to avoid failure because of the fear of rejection. A lot of people don't like to be rejected. A lot of people feel embarrassed, but a lot of times that is us that is putting that embarrassment on ourselves. All right, so it's not always a loss as we may feel. Also, we need to talk about how society looks at it because society is a great teacher of us all, even when we don't mean it to be. Okay. Society often teaches us that success equals perfection. So it's like, okay, I want to start a business and I don't have the perfect idea. I don't have the perfect process. So I'm just not going to start. That's where the majority of us fall. All right, but that's not true. It creates a fear of mistakes, but mistakes help us learn. I can't tell you how, in my 20 plus years of my career, I learned the most when I failed, right? Failure is a teacher, and we have to start looking at it like that. So that's why I wanted to do this episode today because I want to talk about reframing our perspectives. All right, we got to stop looking at failure as rejection because it's not rejection, it's redirection. All right, like it's like a detour. You start on the road to drive somewhere, you see those orange detour signs. That's not going to stop you from getting to your destination. You just have to go a different way. And on the way, you never know what you might pass. You might pass a store you've been looking for and couldn't find, and all of a sudden you're on this detour and you see it. All right. And Thomas Edison has a great quote that I often like to refer to. His quote is, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that don't work. That's success if you really think about it. So what are the types of mindsets? Okay, we have two that we're going to talk about today. All right, we're going to talk about fixed mindset and we're going to talk about a growth mindset. A fixed mindset may sound something like this. If I fail, that means I'm not good enough. Or I should only do what I'm naturally good at. Those are statements made by a person who has a fixed mindset. A person that has a growth mindset would say things like, failure means that I'm learning, which is so true. All right. And then another statement that somebody that has a growth mindset might say is, I can improve with effort. That means that all I have to do is just try. So I want to give you guys a simple exercise that you can do wherever you are and as many times as you like. But the next time you fail, I got the air quotes up. Ask yourself, what did I learn? And how can I improve? Because that opens up your mind to other opportunities, and other next steps for you to grow instead of focusing on the failure. Okay. And while we're talking about it, we have a lot of people that are famous that also failed, but now they're successful. Okay. And I know you've probably heard some of these before. The first person we're going to talk about is Oprah. When Oprah was starting out, she was told that she wasn't fit for television. And now look at her. Okay. Then we also have the great Michael Jordan. All right. Back in high school, when he was in high school, he was cut from his high school basketball team. And he's like the GOAT. Well, depending on how old you are, right? Depending on how old you are, Michael Jordan is the GOAT. But some younger folks look at LeBron James as the GOAT. So, again, we're going to go with Michael Jordan for this exercise, okay? He was cut from his high school basketball team. And then for my Harry Potter fans, J.K. Rowling, who is, maybe I'm pronouncing her name wrong, J.K. Rowling, she is an author. She was rejected by I repeat, multiple publishers before Harry Potter even became a phenomenon, okay? And now I bet you they're kicking themselves. And I'll add another one. Jennifer Hudson. Remember, she did not win. She did not win American Idol, but she's amazing, okay? So just keep those things in mind, because failure, again, those are prime examples of how failure was just a stepping stone to the great things that they've achieved present day. And for my people who like to consult the Bible, there were several examples of failure that led to growth in the Bible. Okay. I just finished reading Genesis for like the umpteenth time. However, we're going to talk about Joseph. Joseph was sold into slavery, but he ended up becoming a leader in Egypt, right? And then he was able to figure out how to effectively make sure that their people didn't starve. So that's a great story. And then there's also Moses. Moses ran from Egypt, but then God still used him. There's a lot of people in the Bible who weren't perfect or anything like that, but their setbacks were used for greater good. All right. And then the last one I'll mention is Peter. Peter denied Jesus. All right. That's like the ultimate. Peter denied Jesus, but he later became a powerful leader. So what I'm saying is, sometimes what looks uh like it's a failure is often God's way of redirecting us to something better, because sometimes when we're so focused on the fact that we failed, air quotes again, we don't even have our eyes open to see how we could grow, how we could do better, what opportunities came from that quote unquote failure. All right. So I gave you the exercise to ask yourself those questions when you don't do as good as you think that you should have, because that's going to open up a new path for you to build on it and grow from that. Okay. And I also want to talk about some practical ways to reframe failure, because it's really all in how you look at it. It's all about mindset. Okay. So one of the things I like to do is I like to journal. And there's all different types of journaling. I do brain dump sometimes. I do, affirmation journaling. I do all kinds of self-reflective journaling. But there's something called failure journaling. All right. That's where you write down the things that you deem to be failures and write what you learned. Because like I said a minute ago, if you open up your mind to see solutions, then they will come. But if you are not open to finding solutions and you're just focused on the failure, then your mind will be closed. So try failure journaling and ask better questions. Like I said, why did I fail is not completely helpful. But if you ask yourself, what did I gain from this? Just watch and see what answers come and what ideas you get. Okay. We have to learn how to reframe setbacks as data, like feedback is life. You know what I mean? But if you never look for it, then you don't get those tools to grow. But every failed attempt gives valuable insight. Okay. It's just like when I send an email sometimes. I am consistently a person that does this. I type an email and I send it, and I immediately see the mistakes that I sent, right? I don't know if anybody else does that, but you have to reframe setbacks because we're all human and we make mistakes, but mistakes are our greatest teachers, okay? And then the last thing I want you to focus on is celebrating small wins. Growth isn't just about avoiding failure because failure is inevitable, okay? Nobody's perfect, but recognizing the progress is where we have the opportunity for growth. So, just a reminder of the differences between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, okay? Um, if you have a fixed mindset, you see failure as the end. And if you have a growth mindset, you see failure as a stepping stone. So don't worry if you are a person who identifies themselves as having a fixed mindset, you can change that, right? You can reframe your mindset. Let's also talk about entrepreneurships. I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs out there and people that are creatives and do creative work. They will be the first to tell you that failing is a natural part of building a business. Even when you're creating a project, I also do crafting as my hobby. And a lot of times I have this great idea of something that I'm going to make. It's going to look so good. I'm watching somebody else do it, or I see somebody else's creation. And when I start my own project, I've run into setbacks, right? Maybe my printer didn't work right. Maybe I was off a little bit on the design and things like that. But I will tell you that each and every time that happens, that the mistake teaches me something, whether it be learning how to use a new piece of equipment or learning how to do a new style of design, okay? Working on projects and things like that. Like, it's failure, or quote unquote failure, is inevitable, okay? But I also want us to realize that the fear of rejection often stops people from even starting. All right. So whether it's a business idea you may have, or whether it's, anything that you would be just starting, you have to push past the fear because the fear is fake. The fear is fake. Another example I can give you, I like to use this one, but I don't want to run it in the ground. But say you're writing a paper, right? You're in class, you're writing a paper, and the teacher says, okay, I want you to write 2 paragraphs about blah 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 subject, right? And you're sitting there trying to come up with the perfect 2 paragraphs. So you are just thinking about it. You're scared to really write something because you're not at the perfect idea yet, but the person next to you is just writing, right? They're just writing and they're just writing. And then all of a sudden the time is up and you spend all your time focused on what the perfect paper would be, and you got an F because you got stuck on trying to make it perfect. Whereas the person who turned in the paper, they got a B plus because they tried and they submitted something, okay? And they did not worry about the thought of perfectionism. So we gotta let that go. So now I want to ask you guys, my listening audience. By the way, thank you for listening. Make sure you share with a friend and tell them to tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend. All right, but what I want to ask you guys, as my listening audience, is what is a failure that turned into growth for you? What is it? Share it with us. And also, like, do you have any thing that you've learned from setbacks in your life? Okay, share your stories with me, and you can follow me on social media. I have a YouTube channel that's called Transform Your Habits. And I also have a membership group called the Self Care Collective. Now, if you're interested in, including more self care in your daily lives, and you're a woman over 40, you definitely want to join the Self Care Collective, because in the Self Care Collective, we focus on daily inclusion of self care activities. And when I say self care activities, we're not talking about going to brunch, we're not talking about getting our nails done. No. Yeah, those things can be considered self care in some instances, but what I like to focus on is emotional self care, physical self care, spiritual self care. We're going to focus on those kinds of things. And we also have monthly workshops where we are actually creating things to help us along our self-care journey. And then you could also be around like-minded women who want to include self-care in their daily lives, okay? I like to thank you for listening. Make sure you share, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.